Spin around, darling. Right round. Oh, yes, I can see your wings.
Gives a big smile.
Oh, yes. One more. Big smile. That's pretty.
She was an incredibly beautiful baby, actually.
Yay, well done. Okay, let's sing another.
That's what I'm glad.
Are we going to post it today?
No.
We are.
There's a letter.
Who says uh-huh? Say yes, Daddy.
Yes, Daddy.
Okay.
Oh, we took a very big tonics. Santa must have bring all these toys. Alice.
Felt blessed, really, at that time.
Today marks 19 years since Madeleine McCann went missing. Almost 2 decades, nearly 20 years of investigations, headlines, documentaries, books, conferences, podcasts, search operations across 2 countries, and over £13 million of British taxpayer money. In those 19 years, this is what we've actually been told. A man took her. Nobody saw him. There is no body. There is no DNA evidence. There is no confession. There is no eyewitness who can be cross-examined under oath. The original suspects were cleared. The current suspect has never been charged. Operation Grange, the British investigation, has just been extended for another year on the lowest budget it has ever received, £86,000. A team of 3 part-time officers and 1 staff member. Meanwhile, the McCann family fund, the 1 members of the public donated specifically to find Madeleine, still has over £1 million sitting in a private bank account untouched. The Metropolitan Police has never once asked the family to draw from that fund. Every year, the Home Office gives them more public money instead. The German suspect was released from prison last September. He has never been charged. He continues to deny involvement. A Polish woman was convicted in November of harassing the McCanns by claiming she was Madeleine. That is what 19 years of investigation has produced. But behind that public summary, there is a different version of this case. One that exists in court documents, in police files, in rogatory letters, in crime scene photographs, in the testimony of nannies, neighbors, friends, and witnesses. A version that has never been resolved. A version that contains evidence that vanished, statements that were suppressed, connections that were never examined, and questions that nobody, not the Portuguese police, not Operation Grange, not the British government, has ever publicly answered. Today, on the 19th anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance, we go through that other version, the one the official summary doesn't include. To understand what 19 years of investigation has actually produced, it helps to know exactly where the case sits at this moment. Operation Grange is the Metropolitan Police's specialist team dedicated to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. It was launched in May 2011, 4 years after Madeleine vanished, at the personal request of the then Home Secretary. The Met agreed to take on the case on the condition that the Home Office would provide the funding because the case was outside the Met's normal jurisdiction. That arrangement has continued every year since. For the financial year 2026 to 2027, the Home Office approved a special grant of £86,000. This is the lowest annual figure in the operation's history. It is a reduction from the £108,000 granted the previous year, and a steep drop from the £192,000 granted in 2024 to 2025. The trend is clear. Each year, the British government commits less money to finding Madeleine McCann than it did the year before. The total amount spent on Operation Grange since 2011 now stands at approximately £13.3 million. The current operational team consists of 3 police officers and 1 member of police staff. All 4 work on a part-time basis. The Home Office has described the operation as being in a maintenance phase, focused on managing ongoing inquiries rather than pursuing active investigative leads. In practical terms, this means the largest, longest-running, and most expensive missing child investigation in modern British history is now being managed by what amounts to less than the equivalent of 2 full-time staff members. While British public money continues to fund Operation Grange every year, there is a separate fund that has not been touched. The Find Madeleine Fund was established in May 2007, the immediate aftermath of Madeleine's disappearance. It was set up to receive donations from members of the public who wanted to contribute to the search. Over the years, the fund has received well over £1 million in donations. As of the most recent publicly available accounts, more than £1 million remains in the fund, sitting in a private bank account. The Metropolitan Police has never once asked Kate and Jerry McCann to draw from this fund to support the investigation. Every year, when Operation Grange's annual budget has come up for renewal, the Met has approached the Home Office for a fresh grant of public money. The family's fund donated specifically to find Madeleine has remained untouched while British taxpayers have continued to cover the cost. This arrangement has been raised publicly. A British man named Ian Crosby attempted in 2025 to bring a judicial review challenging the Home Office's continued funding of the operation. He pointed out, in a publicly available submission, that the family already held over £1 million in donations earmarked specifically for the search. His attempt to force a High Court review was unsuccessful. The Find Madeleine Fund remains intact. The 2026 to 2027 grant of £86,000 remains the lowest in the operation's history. Both facts coexist in the public record. The German dimension of the case has also shifted significantly in the last 12 months. The prime suspect identified by German prosecutors is Christian Bruckner, a German national and convicted sex offender who was living in the Algarve region of Portugal in 2007. He has been the focus of German investigative attention since 2020. He has never been formally charged in connection with Madeleine McCann. In September 2025, Bruckner was released from a German prison after completing a sentence for an unrelated rape conviction. He is currently at liberty in Germany. He continues to deny any involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. The investigation against him remains active, conducted jointly between the German Federal Criminal Police Office, the Metropolitan Police, and the Portuguese Polícia Judiciária. No charge has been filed. In November 2025, a separate legal proceeding produced the only recent court verdict directly involving the McCann family. A 24-year-old Polish woman named Julia Wandelt was convicted of harassing Kate and Jerry McCann between June 2022 and February 2025. She had been claiming on social media that she was Madeleine. The jury acquitted her of stalking but convicted her of harassment. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison. She faces deportation to Poland. The judge granted an indefinite restraining order preventing her from contacting the family. A co-defendant, a 60-year-old Welsh woman named Karen Spragg, was acquitted of all stalking and harassment charges but received a 5-year restraining order. The McCanns issued a public statement after the verdict. They said they took no pleasure in the result and that, like most people, they had not wanted to go through a court process, they had only wanted the harassment to stop. The Wandelt case is significant for a specific reason. It is the only recent legal proceeding directly involving the McCann family. And it concerned a woman making false claims about Madeleine, not anyone connected to Madeleine's actual disappearance. After 19 years, the only person to face British criminal sanction in connection with this case is a woman who claimed to be the missing child. Kate and Jerry McCann have made no significant new public statement about the investigation itself in the last year. Their position, repeated annually around the anniversary, is that they will never give up hope of finding their daughter. That is the public state of the case in May 2026. Behind the public summary of the case sits a body of evidence that has never been resolved. Some of it appears in Portuguese police files. Some of it appears in rogatory letters sent to British authorities. Some of it appears in witness statements, crime scene photographs, and testimony given under formal interview conditions. None of it has produced a single criminal charge against anyone connected to the McCann family or the group of friends who were on holiday with them. In late July 2007, 2 specialist British police dogs were brought to Praia da Luz at the request of Portuguese investigators. Eddie was an enhanced victim recovery dog trained to detect the scent of human cadavers. Keela was a crime scene investigation dog trained to detect trace blood evidence. Inside apartment 5A, the McCanns' rented holiday flat, both dogs alerted in specific locations. Eddie alerted behind the sofa in the living room and in a corner of the bedroom next to the wardrobe. Keela alerted in the same area behind the sofa. The dogs also alerted on items belonging to Kate McCann, on Madeleine's favorite cuddly toy after it had been washed multiple times, and inside the boot of the Renault Scenic the McCanns hired more than 3 weeks after Madeleine vanished. The biological material flagged by the dogs was sent to the Forensic Science Service laboratory in Birmingham for analysis. The results were described publicly as inconclusive. The alerts themselves were never explained. The dogs had been used in over 200 previous cases with a documented record of accuracy. In the McCann case, their findings were noted, recorded, and never followed up with a definitive forensic explanation. 2 nights before Madeleine disappeared, on the evening of May 1, 2007, the British neighbour in the apartment directly above the McCanns heard a child crying continuously for approximately 75 minutes. Her name was Pamela Fenn. She heard the crying from approximately 10:45 at night until midnight. The McCanns were at the tapas restaurant during that time. According to their own stated checking system, an adult should have entered the apartment at least twice during those 75 minutes. No adult did. Madeleine cried for over an hour without anyone responding. The following morning, Madeleine asked her parents a question that Kate McCann documented in her own published account of the case. Madeleine asked, "Why didn't you come when we were crying last night?" The cleaning maid for apartment 5A gave a witness statement to Portuguese police. She described shutters that the McCanns publicly claimed had been forced open by an intruder, but which she said showed no damage. She described cot positions that had changed between her morning visit and her observations later that day. Catriona Baker, Madeleine's primary nanny at the Ocean Club, gave a statement describing Madeleine's mood in the final days before she vanished. According to material that has been documented in the public record, Madeleine spoke to nannies in those final days and used the words, "I am scared." In April 2017, an anonymous nanny who had worked at the Ocean Club gave an interview to the Mirror newspaper. She had given 5 pages of testimony to Portuguese police in 2007. By the time the file reached British investigators running Operation Grange, more than half of her statement had been removed. 3 pages were missing. She had stayed silent for 10 years before speaking publicly. In April 2008, David Payne, one of the McCanns' closest friends, gave a formal rogatory interview to Leicestershire police. In that interview, he confirmed that Kate and Jerry had problems with the fridge in their apartment and that workmen had accessed the apartment to deal with those problems. He flagged the workmen as a retrospective concern. He raised the question of whether they had been properly checked. The original fridge from the McCanns' rented villa was taken to a dump and replaced. It has never been recovered. It has never been forensically examined. The workmen Payne referred to have never been publicly identified. Crime scene photographs taken inside apartment 5A on the night of May 3rd show a large blue bag visible on the upper shelf of the bedroom wardrobe. In later photographs of the same wardrobe, the bag is gone. Portuguese police searched for it for months. It has never been found. Cuddle Cat, Madeleine's favorite cuddly toy, was washed by Kate McCann multiple times before the cadaver dogs arrived. The dog still alerted to it. These are not allegations. They are documented details that exist in police files, witness statements, rogatory interviews, and crime scene photographs. Each one has been part of the public record for years. Together, they describe a case where significant evidence was either compromised, lost, or never explained. After 19 years, none of it has been answered. The evidence is one part of the story. The other part is what was never tested. In a properly functioning criminal investigation, evidence is examined, witnesses are cross-examined, suspects are charged, and a court of competent jurisdiction makes a ruling. That process produces answers, even when those answers are uncomfortable. In the McCann case, that process never reached completion. When the Portuguese investigation was formally shelved in July 2008, the arguido status of Kate McCann, Jerry McCann, and Robert Murat was lifted. The case was archived. The shelving was based on a determination that there was insufficient evidence to bring charges in connection with what had happened to Madeleine herself. The decision did not address whether separate, standalone charges were warranted in relation to other matters that had emerged during the investigation. Several of those matters remain unresolved. The Tapas group was formally asked by Portuguese police to return to Praia da Luz to participate in a reconstruction of the events of May 3, 2007. The reconstruction was a standard investigative procedure. It would have involved each member of the group placing themselves where they said they had been at each point in the evening, allowing investigators to test the consistency of their accounts against each other and against the physical layout of the apartment block. Every member of the group refused. This refusal is documented in the rogatory letters. It is part of the official case file. The reconstruction never took place. The investigation that depended in part on testing the group's collective account was unable to do so because the group collectively declined to participate. Kate McCann, when interviewed by Portuguese police as an arguido, was presented with a list of 48 questions. She declined to answer them. The list of questions she refused to answer is a matter of public record. It includes questions about the events of the night, about her movements, about her contact with the children, and about specific physical evidence. She has never been required to answer those questions in any subsequent legal proceeding. The Portuguese law that addressed the abandonment of the children, Section 138 of the Portuguese Criminal Code, was named in the rogatory letters as one of the offences under investigation. It was never applied as a standalone charge. When the broader investigation was shelved, the abandonment question was effectively closed without separate prosecution. In the United Kingdom, the equivalent law Section 1 of the Children and Young Persons Act 1933 could not be applied. Crown Prosecution Service guidance is explicit on this point. The Act has no extraterritorial jurisdiction. The conduct happened in Portugal, not in England or Wales. British prosecutors had no legal mechanism to bring a charge. In February 2016, a defense lawyer in a Welsh courtroom cited the McCanns directly during a sentencing hearing for his own client who had admitted child neglect. The lawyer argued, on the public record, that the McCanns were guilty of the same offence and were never prosecuted. The court did not refute his comparison. In December 2014, a petition was submitted to the United Kingdom Parliament asking for the McCanns and the Tapas Group to be prosecuted under the 1933 Act. The petition asked the British government to clarify which branch of national security was engaged by a missing child investigation in the event that the case files were being protected. The petition was archived without resolution. No clarification was issued. There is one further detail that exists in the case file and has never been pursued. In the days after Madeleine vanished, a witness in the marina at Sagres, west of Praia da Luz, reported being approached by a woman with an Australian or New Zealand accent. She asked him whether he had brought her new daughter. The witness reported the encounter to authorities. The detail was documented in the Portuguese case file. It has never been followed up internationally. The woman has never been identified. These are not gaps caused by absence of information. The reconstruction refusal is on the record. The 48 unanswered questions are on the record. The abandonment provision in Portuguese law is on the record. The Welsh court argument is on the record. The Sagres Marina sighting is on the record. What is missing is not the evidence or the questions. What is missing is the legal process that would have required someone to answer them. There is one further dimension to this case that exists in the public record and has never been the subject of any formal investigation. It concerns the network of relationships that formed around the McCann family in the days, weeks, and years after Madeleine disappeared. Within 48 hours of the disappearance, the case had become an unusual one for the British government. Missing children of British citizens abroad are not, as a rule, the subject of personal intervention by the Prime Minister or the Cabinet Office. The Foreign Office handles consular support, the relevant police forces coordinate with foreign counterparts, and the family receives standard diplomatic assistance. In the McCann case, that pattern did not hold. Gordon Brown, who at that time was Chancellor of the Exchequer and weeks away from becoming Prime Minister, took a personal interest in the case from the outset. The British government arranged for a man named Clarence Mitchell to travel to Portugal and act as the McCann's official spokesman. At the time he was sent, Mitchell was a serving British government employee. He was the head of the government's media monitoring unit, a body within the Cabinet Office whose function was to track and manage media coverage on behalf of the government. A government employee, drawn from a unit responsible for managing the British state's media position, was dispatched to Portugal to manage public communications around the disappearance of a 3-year-old girl. This was unusual then, and it remains unusual today when measured against any comparable case. Mitchell's career trajectory after his work for the McCanns is also part of the public record. He left his government role and joined Burson Marsteller, one of the largest public affairs and lobbying firms in the world. He then moved to Freud Communications, where he served as a managing director. Freud Communications was founded by Matthew Freud, the British public relations executive who is the son-in-law of Rupert Murdoch. Through that connection, Mitchell, the man who had been managing the McCann's public image since the days after the disappearance, became professionally embedded in one of the most powerful media networks in the English-speaking world. There is one further connection that requires careful handling because it has been documented and reported in the British press, and the implications of it have never been formally examined by any criminal investigation. Matthew Freud's father was Clement Freud. Clement Freud was a British public figure for most of the late 20th century. He was a former Liberal Member of Parliament, a broadcaster, a writer, and the grandson of Sigmund Freud. He owned a holiday villa in Praia da Luz, the same Portuguese village where Madeleine McCann disappeared. The villa was located close to the Ocean Club Resort. After Madeleine's disappearance, Clement Freud befriended Kate and Jerry McCann. He invited them to his villa for dinner on multiple occasions during their extended stay in Portugal in the months after the case became public. According to Kate McCann's own published account, he became a significant figure in their lives during that period. In 2016, almost a decade after Madeleine vanished, ITV News and The Telegraph published an investigation into Clement Freud. By that time, Freud had been dead for 7 years. The investigation revealed that he had been a serial sexual abuser of children and young women across decades of his life. Multiple women came forward to describe abuse that had occurred when they were minors. Lady June Freud, Clement Freud's widow, issued a public apology on behalf of the family for what her late husband had done. A man who was posthumously exposed as a paedophile who owned a villa near the village where a 3-year-old British girl disappeared, befriended that girl's parents in the immediate aftermath of her disappearance and remained in close personal contact with them. According to reporting that emerged after Freud's exposure, he discussed the case with the McCanns in specific terms. The cadaver dog evidence, the alerts that Eddie made on Kate's clothing, on Madeleine's cuddly toy, and inside the boot of the McCann's hire car was raised in conversation. Freud reportedly dismissed the significance of the dog evidence with a comment attributed to him publicly. So what are they going to do? 1 bark for yes, 2 barks for no. A man with no professional standing in forensic science, no formal role in the investigation, and a private history of sexual offences against children was advising the parents of a missing child not to take seriously the alerts of specialist cadaver detection dogs. The web of connections this section has described is documented. Gordon Brown sent Clarence Mitchell. Mitchell later worked for Matthew Freud. Matthew Freud is the son of Clement Freud. Clement Freud lived in Praia da Luz, befriended the McCanns, dismissed the cadaver dog evidence, and was later exposed as a serial paedophile. These are facts. They do not in themselves prove involvement, conspiracy, or coordinated cover-up. What they describe is a network of relationships around the McCann case that has never been formally examined by any criminal investigation. After 19 years, the connections still exist in the public record. The examination of them does not. Across 19 years, the McCann case has produced more public attention than any other missing child investigation in modern European history. The volume is part of what makes it unusual. Most missing child cases, even high-profile ones, fade from mainstream attention within months. The McCann case has not. Every anniversary brings new coverage. Every legal development produces new headlines. Every documentary release generates a fresh round of public debate. There have been multiple book-length accounts. Kate McCann's own memoir, Madeleine, was published in 2011 and has sold over 1 million copies. Gonzalo Amaral, the original lead investigator from the Policia Judiciaria, published The Truth of the Lie in 2008. The book argued that Madeleine had died in apartment 5A and that the abduction story had been staged. It was banned in Portugal following legal action by the McCanns. The ban was eventually overturned by Portuguese courts. Amaral's right to publish his theory was upheld by the European Court of Human Rights in 2022. There have been documentaries on every major British and international broadcaster. The BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Netflix, and Sky have each produced their own investigations. In May 2025, Channel 4 broadcast a documentary titled Madeleine McCann, The Unseen Evidence, presenting material focused on the German investigation into Christian Bruckner. Netflix released an 8-part series in 2019. ITV has produced multiple specials timed to anniversaries. The case has been the subject of dozens of podcasts, hundreds of newspaper investigations, and thousands of online forum discussions. Some of the most detailed analysis of the case files has come from independent researchers, members of the public, and case-following communities operating outside any official media outlet. Against this backdrop, the only legal proceeding directly involving the McCann family in the last several years was the trial of Julia Wandelt, that she was Madeleine McCann. She made the claim on social media. She compared photographs of herself as a child to photographs of Madeleine. She contacted the McCann family directly, including Madeleine's siblings. She travelled to Leicestershire to attempt to meet them in person. She was arrested at Bristol Airport in February 2025 on stalking charges. Her trial began in October 2025. After 5 weeks of evidence, a jury delivered its verdict in November 2025. Wandelt was found guilty of harassment. She was acquitted of the more serious charge of stalking. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison. She faces deportation to Poland on completion of her sentence. The judge granted an indefinite restraining order, preventing her from contacting the McCann family. This is the pattern that has held across the full 19 years. Enormous public attention, constant media coverage, multiple investigations across multiple jurisdictions, documentaries, books, podcasts, forums, and now a recent court verdict. And no resolution, no charge in connection with the disappearance itself, no conviction, no body, no definitive answer. Do you believe this case will ever be solved through the official channels still operating today? If you believe the truth has already been buried, what would it take to bring it back to the surface? And after 19 years, what answer would actually satisfy you? Drop your answers in the comments. I read everyone. Do as well to please subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share. Thanks for watching.